why the decision not to take money?
There's this debate like, oh, you should never raise money, oh, VCs are evil, or like, oh, bootstrap companies suck. Like, it's a stupid debate. It's a tool. When we get the tool, when we raise money, there's dilution.
Yeah.
Some investor is getting a cut of the business, and all of a sudden the stakes change.
That actually can fuel, because you're just saying, I'm going to just do this and ask questions later, and sometimes that can benefit you, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to Business Envy. I'm Greg Grunberg, and you know my partner, Ben.
Hey, everyone.
Ben Parr, Greg Grunberg, and we've got Nick Marzak behind the controls. So Business Envy, if you are just joining us, is our way of learning what we should do, deciding what we should do. Ben and I, years ago, right, Ben?
I think some backstory for everyone is like a decade ago, I interviewed you at Mashable, and afterwards we came up with a brilliant idea for a company, which we'll talk more about. But, we went through the process, our partnership was great. The company didn't get off the ground. It was a cool app idea. And, you and I have done different things with different levels of success on that, but we've wanted to always do something together again.
That
we started talking about
that business didn't get off the ground, but what I learned from that was that I love working with you. We have a great energy, and we are doers, both of us. We get things done. We don't sit and wait, and everybody that tells us no or why it's not a good idea, we'll hear it, we'll adapt it if we like it, but it was just such good synergy. We were moving forward. The train was getting faster and faster, and that train didn't leave the station. But now we decided, okay, we're going to make a product. We're going to start a company. We're going to do something. We have a bunch of different ideas, and we're going to learn from the best. So, you're bringing...
We're going to try not to screw up. We have all these successful people we know. We're going to ask them how to do it.
Yeah. And so when we get to these crossroads, when we have these questions, we're hoping to be guided by some of the most successful people in business in the world. And those are the guests that we have on the show. I'm bringing some of my celebrity friends that have been incredibly successful in business. You're bringing titans of business. So that's what Business Envy is. And since last time we had this, we did this last episode, which if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to it. My mind's been just racing. Nick, you woke me up in the middle of the night with an idea. Give us the elevator pitch of that idea, because I think it's really, really smart.
All right. I was on vacation with my family in South Carolina, and my dad at home has a Sonos system. So the idea of Sonos is every room of your house has a zone, and all the music or whatever you're listening to, TV, whatever, is synced up. But when I was on vacation, we all had different Bluetooth speakers. So I have a Ultimate Ears Mega Boom.
Right.
My dad has a Bose SoundLink or whatever. Everybody has different
I've got this JBL. What's it called? Oh, and then I also got that huge square thing.
Yeah, the Hyperboom.
Hyperboom.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. But this is true. Like, everybody brings their Bluetooth to a location, whether you're just hanging out or you're on vacation or whatever. So what's the problem?
So the problem is you can only you can connect to one of those at a time, and also it will only have one phone. Some of them do a couple phones, but it gets hairy in terms of who's playing what. And so my idea was to create like a centralized hub that has a screen on it that's both a Bluetooth receiver and transmitter. So instead of hooking up to a bunch of different speakers or what have you, you hook up to this one hub, and then the hub blasts out a synchronized Bluetooth feed to all of your speakers. So your speakers all connect to this hub. So it's basically
Sonos doesn't work that way right now. Like, you have to use a Sonos product.
You have to you connect to Sonos, and then Sonos connects to its own speakers. It's using its own internet,
proprietary stuff.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it has its own Wi-Fi signal essentially to sync up with all its speakers.
Okay, Ben,
you could create, and also what it does, the hub, you can connect multiple phones, and on the screen on the hub, you can select who's playing, who the source is. So if one person's like, oh, I have a song, you just go on the screen and connect to their phone, and then that phone is sending, and also you can control left and right. Like, you could say, like, these speakers, I want them to be the left signal, and then you have a stereo image, or do surround if you're in your living room or something, if you're playing a movie. So it basically centralizes a bunch of different brands of speakers, and they're all synced up so that everything's playing.
And you would have multiple inputs, maybe. Like, maybe the TV could be in, and outside, maybe, somebody in outside wants to hear the game, but inside they want to hear music. Like, so let me ask you, Ben, from your side, is that even possible, or is it proprietary? Some of the stuff, is the Bluetooth? It's a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is the Bluetooth signal receiving and sending from these devices, is that proprietary? It doesn't seem it, because I can hook any Bluetooth speaker up to my MacBook Pro, etc.
Here's what I think is going to happen. I think when this show goes live, we're going to, like, someone from the audience is going to be like, actually, here's how you would go and do it. Or, hey, like, this is, like, actually the way I hacked that together. Or, hey, it's not possible. Or, hey, it is possible. You know, I don't know enough about the core Bluetooth technology, but I don't see a reason why it shouldn't be possible. But that's one of the cool things about this show, is like we have all these experts we bring on to help guide us, like where we're wrong, where we're right, as well as the audience, who there's a whole bunch of people listening who are experts in something. So
you know, it's interesting.
Definitely let us know.
Yeah, Nick and I are also working with the Art Center, and Jeff Higashi, he's all about this, and he knows the biggest Bluetooth experts in the world, and we should definitely, you know, just at least look into it. Yeah. But I'd love to steal that idea from you, Nick. I just think that's great. Ben and I that's what we're setting out to do. Call in with your greatest ideas ever.
Wait, hold on. I just looked it up, and it turns out that Bluetooth hubs exist already. No.
Yeah, what about? Anyway, we'll talk about this later. I can't wait to dive into our, and interview our guest, because our guest had some of the biggest exits, that we can.
Our guest is just sold his company for $200 million, didn't raise a dime of VC funding, is an old friend of mine, and is like one of the world's foremost experts at recurring revenue. So like, you're a business, you're a D2C company, and you're trying to get people to do subscription, to buy coffee every month and not just once. He's the expert at that. You're a software company, you're trying to get people to...
Okay, good. Sorry to cut you off, Ben, but I'm so happy that we have somebody who's going to teach us how to make money. That's what this guy sounds like. He knows how to do better than anybody else. Monetize, make money, and then get out on this episode of Business Envy. Dude, your face pops on. What is with Ben? What is with the guests you bring on and their faces? Because these guys, they pop on the screen, and immediately I'm like, I love you. You are like, I want to just hang with you.
He only loves like large men with cherubic faces. That's the goal, really.
Oh goodness!
Yeah, that's what's up. No,
I think I just found my new stuntman for Star Wars. You look like Snap Wexley. You look like my character in Star Wars.
Would you do it, PC?
Yeah. I'll have to think about it. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna throw some.
Let's just go get coffee with J.J. Abrams too. Like, let's do it.
Why not? All right, wait.
Right?
I'm gonna throw some dialogue lines at you. You throw it back at me. Okay, I got it. This is your idea. First of all, your mic's way hot. So here we go. Ready?
Do you want me to turn it down?
Yeah, gain it down probably 20%. I think that'll be good.
Gainer.
Gain it. Yeah, that's producer talk. Gain it down. All right, first dialogue line. Here you go. We're flying X-wings, right? We're in formation, and I need you to say, "I got your back, Poe." All right, here we go. Action.
I got your back, Poe.
Okay, so if people, I love it. And if people are not watching this right now, PC's got his arms out like he's Peter Pan.
Keep going.
All right,
I got your back, Poe.
There you go.
I don't know. I can go higher.
No, that's
I can
it.
go. I got your back, Poe. I can go there, like wherever you need me, Greg.
Yes.
I've got your back, Poe.
Yeah, the emotional.
I didn't know if you wanted me, like, you didn't set me up. I didn't know if we were like fighting back, if we were dying.
What it tells me is that you can walk into any room and you can just adapt, right? Isn't that what this is all about?
Life and times of a software CEO. That's what that is,
Exactly.
basically. So yeah, it's good.
Ben, can you please do the proper introduction for PC? I'm sorry I just jumped all over him, but he's...
I mean, that's going to be PC's job, but I will give like some of that context, which is PC and I have known each other for a couple of years, and PC, his real name's Patrick, but he goes by PC, and he built one of the company for understanding subscription and understanding pricing. Basically, this is the guy who you're like, I want to figure out how to monetize and to grow my revenue. He's the guy. Now, we're interviewing him, having a conversation with him, not very long after he just had some news. I'll let you tell the news. It's what happened in the last like month or two, some small thing, right?
Yeah. So that was a decent. I can get into a deeper background if it's relevant.
It's relevant, my friend.
Go, but all right. So yeah, so Patrick Campbell, I'm founder and CEO of a company called ProfitWell. We do everything that Ben just said. My personal background is in econometrics and math, which means I had a lot of friends as a kid. I grew up in farmland in Wisconsin, and then worked in DC for a little bit. Worked in the Intel community, which is kind of fun. I say that sarcastically, and then I went to work at tech and at Google in Boston before jumping into startups. And what Ben was referring to is ProfitWell is a bootstrap company, which is kind of like an interesting relevancy. For those who don't know, that means that like we didn't take on any outside investors. So 10 years ago, I cashed in a small 401k. I was in my early 20s, so it was like 10 grand, after the tax hit. And then basically started the company, and then we just sold for over $200 million a couple months ago.
Wow!
So,
and how when
you
say
that was I buried the lead there.
Yeah. Wait. So I need to have clarity as to who is going to finance my next film. So here's. Wait. First of all, massive congratulations. That's.
I would stake you, Greg. I'll throw that out there.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I've seen your body of work.
Thank you.
We'll save the cheerleader, save the world.
There you go.
It's all good.
Nice reference.
But going back to what you were saying, so you bootstrapped, so you did not take money. Now, my understanding is your value is all is knowledge. I mean, you look at a company and you say, these guys are leaving money on the table left and right. This is how they can better monetize. This is what they should be doing. Or, right? I mean, isn't that because what would you, besides salary, what else, why would you have taken money? Why would you have needed to take money is my question.
Yeah, it's kind of like, again, not knowing the audience exactly, but like think of like a film, right? Or like a series. Like even if you're creating like an indie film, and I'm going to speak as if I know, and I don't really know. I know like the little bits here and there, but like the amount of money you actually need to do something relatively simple is surprising, right? If you want to do it at a certain level, right? Like if we want to rent like, really nice camera, and we need a DP who's like really good at like this kind of stuff, because we're going to spend the time and the money, like we might as well spend a little extra money to make it really good, right? Like all those other things. Yeah. Well, in a company, there's those types of things, like in terms of like equipment, right? Like, it's not just laptops, but like you have to, if you're building software, you have to buy hosting essentially, right? Which is like, it's Amazon, AWS, and it's like when someone accesses your software across the world and they're getting their data really quickly, like that stuff's actually relatively expensive. Mm-hmm. But then on top of that, like, Ben knows really well, given Ben has like a data business as well, right? So we deal with like the more data you suck in as a software product, like the more expensive it is, because storing that data and then making it really accessible, even if the user doesn't know they're accessing the data, they're just looking at a pretty graph or just, talking to their friends on Facebook or whatever, like it's expensive. But then like all good things, like it takes humans, more humans, the product becomes the company, which is the people, right? And, you get what you pay for, right? Like, in terms of people and stuff like that. And and then like growing the company, like, sponsoring an event, marketing, these types of things start to cost money. And so like, I think we, when we sold, which is recently, obviously, I would say like in the early days, I didn't pay myself anything. I just lived off that 10 grand. And then, as we got closer and closer to sale, like we were probably we weren't burning, meaning, spending money we didn't have, but like our expenses were probably like $8 million a year, like something like that, right? Wow. So like not nothing, right? And that gradually went up, right? Like, in the beginning it was like I hired the first guy who made like 100 grand, right? And then, he was with us over 10 years, his salary went up, all that kind of fun stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's building a business, whether it's like a corner store, whether it's a studio, whether it's a software company, like there's just costs everywhere. It just depends on like the type of cost, basically.
So I want to ask the question of like, there's a big decision I think lots of founders have to make, which is, do I take money? Do I not take money? I've taken money.
Yeah.
Greg had a business, Yowza, where he took a little bit of money. You decided not to, and I know you've had decision points. So like, why the decision not to take money?
So I think that it's a good question. And I think the debate around it is like, there's this debate, Greg, I don't know if you're into the tech world. Sounds like you are a bit.
Yeah.
So apologies if this comes off because you already know this, but like, there's a really like the debate of like, oh, you should never raise money. Oh, VCs are evil, or like, oh, bootstrap companies suck. Like, it's a stupid debate, right? Like in reality, it's a tool, right? Funding's a tool, right? When Disney finances a movie, like that funding is a tool that expects a return, right? For us, it was one of those things where when we get the tool, when we raise money, there's dilution, right? Some investor is getting a cut of the business, and all of a sudden the stakes change, right? So we had like for us, like we had a multi 9-figure exit that like off of no money raised. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. But like for Ben, whenever Ben has to raise a round, the stakes go up because those latest investors expect a higher return now because they're coming in at a certain valuation, but they want their money to be more than 1x, right? For us, what we kind of did in the beginning is I just didn't even know you could raise money. Like I was just that naive. Like I was like, I don't even understand this world, right? It's kind of like I like shooting movies on my iPhone. I don't even know how to get a studio to look at me, right? Like that's kind of the vibe.
Yeah, but that
ended up
actually
happening.
That actually can fuel because then you're not being restricted. You're just saying I'm going to just do this and ask questions later, and sometimes that can benefit you, right?
Yeah. No, it's great.
Worked out
Don't
for
get me
you.
wrong. Like
Yeah, it worked out.
we are one of the most efficient prioritized teams, like I would argue, in our space, because like that restriction creates expression, right? Like, cool, like what is the most important thing we're gonna go do? We're not gonna like try to go after a bunch of different things, but it's a different way up the mountain, right? We also were slower, right? So to get to our particular exit, and I'm not complaining, it took 10 years, right? Other people, they would get that exit in 6 years, right? And nothing's guaranteed in life, but it's just a different way up the mountain. And we thankfully, our pricing was high enough and our margins were high enough that we were able to get enough profit basically to reinvest in the business. And I was very like, no kids, no mortgage. So I was like, yeah, reinvest everything. I don't need to take any money off the table, right?
Right. But you do live in
that basically fueled the business.
You do live in Utah, so you're buying a lot of candy and sweets and pace. And
Greg, you remember the tribe?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? You remember the tribe?
I was. My son plays baseball at LMU, and they just played BYU, and so we were out there. And first of all, have you been to a BYU sporting event?
I have not. I just love that they call the University of Utah versus BYU football game the Holy War. It's just
Yes.
my favorite
It's
thing
the
about the
best
state.
thing ever.
It's so good.
They're the Cougars, and they sell a Cougar's tail, and it is a 3-foot long maple bar, a donut, and it is the most incredible.
I love sweets there.
Oh my God! Because they don't have caffeine and they don't have cigarettes and they don't have drugs or alcohol, whatever. So it's like sweets. This is what I told a bunch of, by the way, the nicest people in the world, and they were like, "No, you don't understand. We are addicted to sweets." But anyway, I just want to,
I want some candy now.
My question is, because you were just mentioning some really important things. And by the way, the audience, which is interesting, is our audience hopefully is building. And there's two sides. There are people that know stuff about business and people that don't. So your answers are just eloquent and beautiful and amazing. So my question though, when you said you could afford that 10, or you went 10 years, if you had taken early money, do you think that there would have been much more of a pressure? And at those decision moments, or whatever you called them, Ben, those moments when you were like, should we take money now, or can we? Would there have been more pressure because you're trying to sleep at night? You're going, hey, my buddy, Josh, lend me $2 million. I want to pay him back, and it's been a while. And did you have the freedom to be more nimble and not have so much pressure? I guess
the short answer is no, but not because of the logic that you're going after. It's because I don't know, I'm for my own insecurities and all that kind of fun stuff, I'm an extremely driven person, just super, sold a company and I looked at the bank account for a couple of weeks, but then now I'm still working 60 hours a week. I'm still doing, cause I'm just me, you know what I mean? And so I think it was more, it wouldn't have changed. I probably would have felt more anxiety, a different type of anxiety. But I think that what's interesting, and this is, with hindsight, and especially now, I'm the company that bought us like is a funded company, and we just had a board meeting yesterday in New York in like a very fancy, investors office, all that kind of stuff. And I think what's really fascinating is like you don't work for your investors. And that's a thing that founders, like if you start a company, it's very like any investor who's like, you work for me is a terrible investor. And sometimes you have to take those because you don't have any other option. Because like at the end of the day, it's your company. And some of the best CEOs that like I look up to, or just like founders or execs, they're the ones who like when the investors get a little too aggressive, like it's a partnership. So it's like it's a partnership of equals, and your job as like an executive is like you are the one in the trench like figuring stuff out, right? And so yes, like I want to get those folks who have invested in the companies called Paddle, and even the ones that invested before, I want them to get a return because like that's the thing that I'm supposed to do, right? But it's one of those things, whenever it gets into a power dynamic, it's really dangerous. And I also think it is important what you said though, because for me, one of the most important things that we did that was just a natural thing, but I do think it's a suggestion that people should keep in mind is, what type of company do you want to build? Do you want to build like an amazing lifestyle, which is fine. That's kind of like a pejorative term in some circles, lifestyle business. Like, oh, it's not real. It's like, okay, so you're doing $1 million a year and you have a lot of profit and you work 20 hours a week. Oh my God, that's amazing, right? It's not a, right? It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Or you're making, and it's one of those things where like, if you want that, you're going to have to work your butt off to get there, and then you can enjoy it, right? And that's great. And then you don't feel any pressure because it's yours, and you shouldn't raise money because that's a different expectation. If you want to build like a category defining company, which is what we wanted to do, then you're going to have to raise money, like, right? There's going to be pressure. And like, we should have raised money earlier than we did. We sold not because we wanted to sell, but because we started going out and like starting a fundraise. And then someone like was like, we should buy you. And we were like, oh, we didn't even think about that. That's like another way we can get, resources, right? Yeah. And so I think it's just understanding like what type of company you want.
How do you
and then
vet?
Going after it? I think we were.
I was just say, how do you vet? I'm just going to keep cutting you off throughout this whole interview.
No, you're fine.
Thank you. I apologize. How do you vet that? What you were just saying is, you don't want to feel like you're working for your investors. You're part of a team. They're throwing gas on the fire. How do you vet that when
Yeah.
And also, I would imagine, you're some of these people, some of these companies, they're in desperate situations. They don't want to show it, but they absolutely need the funding and they need it now. So how do you try and figure out whether that is the right partner for you?
Ben's probably a lot better at this than I am because, like, again, Ben's raised multiple rounds of funding, right? Like, and he's been intimately involved with that. But like for me, it was more. I think it's all about confidence, right? Like it's all about like figuring out like who you are, and I'm a pretty like insecure person, and so for me, what was really hard was like getting the courage to be disliked, like not only from the team and these types of things, but then it's very similar to like when you hire someone, right? Like they don't work for you. They work for the company, right? That investor is not your boss. They are putting money into a company, and then we're taking this thing, and you are the steward. If you're the CEO or the founder, you're the steward of bringing this thing forward. And one of the best stories like I've heard recently actually was there's this guy named Frank Slootman who Ben, he probably doesn't know him, but knows of him. He's the CEO of a company called Snowflake, right? Okay. He's like a perennial CEO. He's kind of like, he wrote a book called Amp It Up. That's really popular right now in the business world. But he apparently in a meeting in one of his previous companies, the board, like they had a really bad quarter, like they missed and it was really, really bad. And comes in, he's got a deck, the board deck he's working through. And then the investors, like they just, second slide, they start like going in. They just start like, oh, why is it this way, Frank? Why was it? And Frank, he shuts the laptop, he pauses and he goes, the minute you feel like I am not the right person to run this company, fire me. Until then, sit down, listen to what I have to say, and I will let you know what I need your help with. Right? And what's funny is like, I don't have the balls to do that yet. Maybe now I do, but I didn't have the balls to do that before. And I think what the thing is though, is that like the example is the way that any of us in this room would do that is probably going to be very different, but it's going to be like, okay, we entered into a partnership. Yes, we had a bad quarter because everyone's kind of spinning. We're all looking for like, why, what's wrong, right? But then we have to evaluate it. I'm the steward of this company and we have to move forward, right? And so I think it's having really good conversations with the team member you hired, the investor, whoever it is, about what are the rules of engagement? Like, where can they help? Where can they not help? How much do they care about certain feedback? How much do they not care about feedback? And when you align all of these things, then it gets really easy. Now, as you mentioned, sometimes you don't have this opportunity, but what I found is like the best investors align with everything I just said. But if you're in a bad spot, they might ratchet up like the terms, or they might ratchet up how much they get of the company, right? So they might go, well, I get a 3x preference, which means when the company sells, I get triple my money first before anyone else gets any of their money, right? It kind of sucks, but it's like, and it's not really done as much anymore in the world of tech, but it's one of those things where like when you're over a barrel, they'll do stuff like that. Or like, hey, you wanted to, give me 20% for $100 million. Well, actually I want 25% now.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden, like technically it's a better deal for them.
Yeah.
This is why you want to have more to like control your own destiny. And look, like, I'll just like say, so as someone who has raised a bunch of money, like when I was like vetting investors for Octane and even previous stuff, like there's a couple of things like, the longer we found that the longer we do the main partner, the much better the experience. And so like the honest truth is like, we've been very lucky with our investors. We have some big name tier 1 investors like General Catalyst and Javelin and Boost who've done, great work with us. And we do a lot of those partners for 1, 2, or even 8 years before we took their money. And that turned out to be a good decision because then we were able to like really understand like how they thought. And, also like professional investors really understand that like, look, 95% of companies do fail, and that's just going to be part of the game, and it's okay as long as you put in like the maximum amount of effort into it. And you try your damnedest to make sure like, you make everyone right. And like, it doesn't work out every time. And sometimes it's not even because of yourself, it's because of luck. And like, so like some additional context, BC, like Greg and I are talking about like part of the reason we're doing the show is like, we tried to do a business 10 years ago. It didn't take off for a bunch of different things. We got close. We're talking about doing a couple new ones, but instead of like just jumping right into that, we want to learn from like the people who are the experts, who have been successful, who have maybe sold their company for $200 million on like what we should be doing, shouldn't be doing, should be thinking about, and hopefully everyone else can learn from that too.
What's interesting it also when I was doing Yowza is we got to a point where we needed just the funds to extend the runway, and we were building the company.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that time I was like, just money. Yeah, somebody's gonna give us money. We were pitching, we were like, yeah, money's money.
Who's got a check?
Right, but then you start thinking, okay, well, let's take a strategic partner, because we had we had a handful of people that wanted to give us money, and we were considering it. And then you think, okay, well, no, not just money, but somebody can strategically help us, somebody that's in a lane that we want to be in. And we didn't have the luxury of working with them, Ben, for 2 to 8 years. And so we were faced with this. Anyway, took money, cut to a couple of years later, and I'm sitting in this our board meeting, and I'm just everybody's angling. And they're angling against me. They've had backdoor conversations. And I was like, this is so fucking cutthroat. All I'm trying to do is make a company that is super, super easy. It's a mobile coupon company. How difficult I'm just trying to acquire businesses to load their coupons and payers. Customers, I'm going on talk shows. I'm doing my part to market this and get people to use it. It was just like, it was such a lesson. But again, no two situations are the same. Like, you can give advice all you want, but everybody's in a different situation, I would imagine,
Well, and that's where I think, like, to give you guys a template, and I'm sure Ben, like, just knowing you, like, better than Greg here, like, I'm sure you're on this wavelength already. It's like, I would not fully bootstrap a company over again, unless I kind of intended just to, like, kind of have something that was more side project. I would bootstrap the first phase, like year, 2 years, like kind of figuring out what we are, where we're going, pre-scale, everything like that. And then instantly that's when I would raise money, because I think that's where like the money is most useful, is like it's meant to be spent, right? And that's another thing. Like, there's a lot of like founders, especially right now with like the downturn kind of happening. They're like, oh, I haven't spent any of the money in the bank account. It's like, then why did you give up part of your company?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
It's like, what are you doing, right? And that's, I had to learn how to spend money, frankly. But I think the one thing, like, we should have raised money as soon as we knew that our core product was going to be free. So we ran a freemium strategy. That's the minute we should have raised money, because we scaled a financial metrics product that needed to be accurate, which is really hard actually. And then it was going to be free, which is also like really hard. And so that's when we should have raised money. But I think that like doing it again, it also gives you leverage is such a misconstrued word. It just naturally gives you leverage, which I think is a good thing. Of like when you go to these investors, it's like they want to be in. It's not like you need them in. It's like they want to be in because you have this traction. And then all of a sudden you're just kind of like going from there. And, and I think that's the best way to do it. And you still, I don't know, like I've been thinking about it the last couple of minutes in the back of my mind, like I still feel like you should have an obligation to them. You should feel that, but it's not like they're driving the bus, because the best investors also have, oh, I'm sitting on 5 boards. Like one of our new board members yesterday, he's like, yeah, I have 5 boards. And it's like, okay, so he's not looking at this the same way we do. And that's fine. He's looking at this as like, I have these 5 bets, they're big bets, and we're going to go after them. This is one bet that I have, right? And I think that's the important thing of like getting in your head about, not allowing it to be this like power structure, letting it be like a partner structure, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Before we went on the air, before we got into this interview, I was asking Ben, how much of your business is people coming to you and saying, I want to better monetize my company? And how much is it you seeing a great company out there or somebody that's growing and going, man, these people are just doing it wrong. I could help them so much, and aggressively going after businesses to help them monetize? Yeah,
totally. So we're what's called a multi-product company. We have multiple products. I think every business in this day and age needs to be multi-product, because what's happened is it used to be easier to market and grow. Like we were getting brand new marketing channels like every quarter. You had Google AdWords for a penny a click. Then all of a sudden you'd have this new thing, and then Facebook started advertising and all these other things. And it was just this rise between 2001 and about 2015. And
look forward to your TikTok dances, PC.
I know, but that's what I was about to say is like, we haven't had a brand new marketing channel since 2015 until TikTok, right? So we went from every quarter, some innovation that you could jump on in order to grow your business, to like, oh, now there's all this competition on all these channels and there aren't these new opportunities opening up. And so what's interesting is like, it's harder to distribute a product than it is to build it now. It used to be really hard to build, and it's everything's hard, but it was harder. And so if you have multiple products to sell to your existing customer base, you can grow like through expansion revenue, like, oh, they're using one product, now let's use another 2. So I give you that preface because one of our products, the pricing product, we do a lot of content, and we were one of the first software companies to build like an actual media property. So we have 8 different podcasts and video series. They're all like nonfiction, but like we have a regular podcast kind of like this, where we're just kind of talking to people. And then we have this show called Pricing Page Teardown, where like it's a video series where we look at pricing pages and we like vamp and joke about what they're good and what they're bad at, that type of thing. So what that content allowed us to do is get, for our pricing product, 90% of things are inbound. We just gained a reputation over 10 years, and just 90% of people just are like, hey, we need help. Like we have a 3-month wait list to like onboard new customers for that product.
Wow.
And then our second product, Retain, which helps with like retention and helps you lower your cancellation rates. If you're a subscription company, that's our target market, subscription companies. We weren't known for that. So the inbound started at 0 because we weren't known for it, and then slowly ticked up. And so right now still we built an outbound sales channel with that. And now it's a lot of outbound. So it's still probably at least half, if not like 70% of us reaching out and saying, hey, subscription company, noticed you're using Stripe, which is a billing product, or noticed you're using ChargeBee, which is another billing product. Your cancellation rates are probably here. We can lower them to here, and you only pay if we win. Like if we don't lower your cancellation rate, you don't pay, right? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, like, and then you have a conversation, kind of sell. And right. Yeah, it's a little extra context that's hopefully helpful, but that's kind of the answer to your question.
Well, that's good. And when did you decide to start putting out content? Was that just out of conversation, and you were like, we should record this? Like you're sitting in the conference room going, what a shitty company, they're doing it wrong, blah 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 blah. Like, well, people want to hear this.
Yeah. It was, there's 2 time periods. The first one was we got a free HubSpot account, which is like a blogging and marketing software product where it like allows you to host a blog and stuff. And I didn't know anything about marketing, and I was like, I can write relatively decently. And so I was like, oh, okay, like let me start like publishing blog posts, right? And then every blog post I wrote, more people would listen and watch. It started off with like 20 people, then it was 30, then it was 100, so on and so forth. But then when I started thinking, okay, I can't be the only person marketing the business, like you have to think about, well, what type of marketer are you going to hire? This is a big mistake a lot of people make. They're just like, whoever has marketing in their name. Problem is, it's like you're going to have a very specific type of marketing strategy, and not every marketer is geared towards that. And it doesn't mean they're good or bad. It's just, if you're going to focus a lot on paid ads, like that person can't be a content marketer, right? And so I did research, again, the math and, econ background, and I discovered, to make a really long story short, the best companies in the world at driving traffic are media companies. They're the worst at monetizing the traffic, right?
Yep.
And I have a bunch of data if it's interesting. I don't know if it is, but then the best companies in the world at monetizing are typically subscription companies, or software companies, I should say. So I was like, what if we put the two together? And so we started this media, it's called Recur, ProfitWell Recur, now Paddle Recur. And essentially we just started with we didn't even start with a show. We just literally took a blog post, and I just sat in front of a screen and, just like talked through the blog post. And what we noticed is, and you guys know this, it's like, there's a certain type of person who wants to read. There's a lot more people who just want to watch something, right? And then all of a sudden our brand just started taking off because it was
those
the
are
same
called,
content.
by the way, those are called network executives. Those are called network executives.
They're like, yeah, the script's good. I only sent you one page.
Exactly. My assistant told me that the synopsis that they read was really good. No, that's
a funny world, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, long story short, and then it was like, what's one show and then another show? And, it's kind of cool. It's a little bit different than like the entertainment world is like, so that pricing show gets 50,000 views an episode, which that's kind of like we are the number one show on television, which is kind of crazy because it's such a weird market, it's such a small market. And I actually, when we started doing that, I was like, oh, we're not succeeding enough. And then I had one of my friends who runs another software company was like, hold on a second, dude. Like, you're getting 50,000 people to watch you talk about a pricing page. Like, that's amazing. And I was like, oh yeah. And it's like, oh, like another one of our shows, it's like 2,000 people an episode. And I was like, yeah, but they're all C-level executives at software companies. Like, and it takes me no time to do an episode. Right. And so it's like, you kind of have to think about like, what does good look like, which isn't Mr. Beast and YouTube and that type of thing if you're trying to, build a certain audience.
Yeah, well, you watch, on Yowza, what I said at the beginning is I said, look, it's great that I'm an actor on TV and people want to pay attention, but all that is bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. The value has to be there, and we have to show that we are the most knowledgeable in this space. So, for example, I reached out to some of the news outlets and I said, every time that there's some big dynamic change in, buying things online, or Amazon does a shift or whatever, it's like what Mashable did. It was like you turn to them as the experts because you want to know. So I was like, is there any way that I can be that guy? It's like, all right, whatever, something is happening. It was just when apps were coming out. I said, I want to be the app expert. And it didn't quite work out that way, but that's cool. Because if you're that guy, just naturally people are going to gravitate, and you're just a smart guy, and you're
Thanks,
obviously eloquent, and you have a great beard, and we should get together and have pastries.
Excellent beard. My beard could only wish. And Greg, like, you are like a top tier like app expert, especially among like actors. You built an entire like app company. And I think, this time now we're talking about building some direct to consumer companies potentially as our first one.
Yeah. But what I got to say is what I've learned already from UPC is that, and it's what I've learned sometimes when I was in the frozen yogurt business many years ago, is I tried to take, and my wife reminds me of this all the time. She's, oh, remember this? She remembers the shortcomings that I'm, learning from. But I remember trying to sell to a market, and they would say, no, you need multiple SKUs. We can't just take this product. You have to have other products. Yeah. Like you said, you got to have more than one product. And Ben, we have 2 or 3 products. So maybe that's the way to do it, is to say, because we would do that anyway, but to start with, the multiple.
With one and get it quick out there. Yeah, or start. Like, I think D2C, it's a little different because like it's kind of funny. Like, when we built software, it's like a different type of hard. Like, we put it out there and then we can ship it right away, right? In D2C, you're like dealing with actual atoms, right? Mm-hmm. Like physical atoms, I guess. I mean, they're all atoms, but that's a whole existential conversation later. But like, basically, like, you're dealing with like. Yeah, I know. Like, what is life, guys? No, it's like really interesting.
Can I buy some pot from you? Anyway, go ahead.
This is turning to Elon Musk on Rogan.
You know what? If I can give you the Elon pop, that would be good for all of us, right? No, but yeah, it is interesting. Like, it's just a different set of challenges, right? And so that's why, like, when a lot of D2C brands, like they ask us about, because we have a lot of D2C subscription brands that use our products. They're like, oh, we want to do more media, we want to do more content. Like, I go, no, don't do it. They're like, why? I was like, have you figured out Facebook and Instagram? They're
Yeah.
like, no. I was like, you got to start there, because that's where like so much of your money is going to go and needs to optimize. And then eventually you want to build your brand in different ways, but it's funny how you go up the hill. But I do think it's cool, Greg, that you like, there's a lot of like actors and like folks in the entertainment industry who are now like, oh, I want to be an investor. I want to do apps. I want to be a business person as well. But it's like you're an OG of that, which I think is really, really interesting, because I think it's like the thought of, okay, I have a platform. How do I use that platform for this next thing and this next thing? I think that's like the growth mindset that is so required for so many different things, is like, where is my strength? How do I go after it? Not like, hey, I got this weakness, like, let me mitigate it. It's like, no, let me hire someone else for the weakness and kind of go from there.
Absolutely. That's why I think Ben and I balance each other out. Like, I'm really excited at the future of just doing that. I mean, I love that we're doing
Ben
this.
has no weaknesses. Just putting it so.
Thousands of weaknesses. Don't you worry about that. But
Yeah.
Only when you
ones.
get him a spicy Mai Tai in Cabo does Ben have weaknesses. So
I just got back
that's
from
what I got
Cabo.
out there,
I
yeah.
just got back from Cabo. Had the greatest time. I want to retire down there, man. But not the
pretty
Cabo
wild.
side. I want to go San Jose del Cabo.
I wondered
The
why you
quiet
kept
side.
drunk texting me. You love me. I was like, where is he?
Our text are just filled with it, and our three-way text thread just, oh my God, I love
he
you
was
guys
crying.
so much.
Yeah. No, my business and my production company, Brad, he was like, you got some pictures of the trip? And I'm like, yeah, look at these tacos. And then look at these chilaquiles. And you got to see this. Now, we went back to the taco place, and I had this. And he's like, no. Your family? Did you go horseback riding on the beach? I'm like, no, dude. I went from taco
Tacos.
joint to taco joint. Oh, man. So good.
like PC, how, like, we're talking about like multiple things, but you pick one product at a time to launch, and then you become multi-product. How do you pick a product to like go and launch and be like,
Yeah.
that has a market?
You know what's funny? If it was early on, like I didn't like wake up and like love pricing, and then a little bit later wake up and love subscription financial metrics, right? Like I wasn't on that wavelength. Although like I think I am on that wavelength a little bit, but it was more of, I was working at a company, and they gave it pricing to me. And I was like an entry-level plus kid, and we would see these big moves in revenue back and forth, and I was like not in love with the culture, and then I was like, screw it, like let's just go. And then that's kind of the start, was like, I don't want to like kids and a mortgage before like I try, right? Because I know, given like I have a blue collar background, as soon as I have those things, I'm not going to feel like I can like take the risk. And so I actually think that it's really dangerous, I think, to have like a passion for certain things, because it's a double-edged sword. It's amazing because the passion for whatever you're doing obviously gives you a lot of energy, but it also is like one of those things where it makes you blind to like what's good or bad. Because for me, I was blind to, we're targeting the subscription space. It obviously worked out, but also like there's only 150,000 companies in the subscription space, D2C, media, et cetera. And we feel like there's so many coming online because there's a lot of consumer ones that come online, but that number isn't growing exponentially, right? And so that was the mistake we made, is I like started going into this world, and then like that was the critical thing that shapes so much in terms of like our growth. And so to answer your question, I think like you have to do some analysis, you have to do some research, right? Like, and this is the thing a lot of people don't do, is they don't talk to customers, right? So like, imagine I'm going to build a new company or product. I'm an entrepreneur, so I have like ideas, right? Like I like went to Cabo, I had really good tacos. Why were they so good? Oh, they had this certain hot sauce on it, right? Maybe I should start a hot sauce company, right? Or a distributor, right? You want to pull those threads, but then as soon as you start getting a little serious about a thread, you're dreaming about, I could do this and this and this and this, and right? It's like you have to pause and be like, let me go talk to 10 people. And almost like a prosecuting attorney, meaning you're not leading the witness, you have to be like, do you put anything on your tacos? What do you put on your tacos, right? You have to ask that question. And then they're like, yeah, I put some, like tell me about it. Why? Why do you put, what were you doing before you put the thing on the tacos? I was sprinkling salt on it. So you put salt before you, like, and then you start discovering all these different things.
Right.
And then I think once you're like, okay, there appears to be a need, then you might do some market analysis, right? Well, I talked to this person, there's this many people in this demographic and this type of thing. And then you're like, okay, I start having a business form. And you're not like creating a business plan or anything. You just like are notes. You're like a little like detective. And then I think what ends up happening is then you probably have like but in 10 years, am I the hot sauce guy? Do I want to be the hot sauce guy? And then you're like, maybe not. Even if it's a great business, then you would do like the culture shift, right? Because for me, like there's some business ideas I have where I'm like, oh, I know this would be a successful business. I can't imagine talking about that every day and like doing that type of thing. And that's okay. Like we have a privilege of being able to do that. But once you do that research, then, then you have to do some testing and like get it in front of people and all that kind of stuff. But it's just being that detective, I think, is important.
Yeah, but being that detective is fucking boring when it's launching a company. It just is. It's like, and you're so right. It is the most important.
You're sitting in place. You're sitting in place.
Yeah, and it's so important. But people don't want to hear why something isn't working or won't work. They don't want to. Devil's advocate is not their friend at the beginning. They want to just hear yes. It's like when I'm writing a script or I'm coming up with an idea. I just want somebody over my shoulder. I want yes hand. I want that improv rule. I don't want somebody questioning my passion. And it's so important what you're saying because.
But you know what it is? You know what it is then? Is you need either Ben and you need to do this to each other. I have a guy named Facundo, who I'm like so excited. And then he like, yeah, but what about this? And I'm like, dude, can you just dream with me right now? And he's like, well, no, we have to talk about these things and blah, blah, blah.
Fuck you.
So maybe you both feed off of each other, then find. Yeah. Don't worry. I've heard that before. But then also.
It's so true.
What they end up doing is like, if you guys feed off each other, okay, well, let's go talk to like a third party, an advisor or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think, Greg, the thing you should think about is that the thing that always goes in my mind when I'm like, this sucks, I hate it so much, because you're getting told no a lot. Because you're just getting like told your idea sucks. And that's kind of like, you got to fall in love with it a little bit is what is the quickest path to learning? That's the thing. The longest path to learning is I'm going to go do the easy stuff, find a sourcer, find a brand, do all these other things, and then I have 10,000 bottles of hot sauce that no one wants to buy.
Exactly.
That's the longest path to learning, right?
Right.
So what's the quickest path? Let me just get it and see if people like it. And so it's just one of those things that it saves you so much time, and you can't really learn it, but this is not your first time. So like, you know this, right? But the first time people that might be listening, it's like, you're probably going to make this mistake, and just like, you'll remember this podcast episode, but you're like, yeah, I made that mistake, but I know why it was a mistake, and now I can hopefully do better.
I mean, Greg, I think, we've been talking about the tacos and all the things. I feel like, we had to see, like, can we pre-sell 1,000 burritos before we start making a whole bunch of baby burritos, which is one of the ideas that, to make it much easier.
Baby burritos?
Baby burritos.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it's an idea.
I'll give you some validation.
You're like, let's go.
No, seriously. I'm always like, I'm trying to lose weight, and I'm always like, I love burritos, but then I'm like, it's always like 1,500 calories to have a freaking burrito.
I wish
you're going to tell me it's a completely different concept.
We could do that too.
We could do that too. No, it's it's an idea. It's an idea that
maybe a better name, because that's what I just assumed it was.
That's right. It's an idea that came out of when my boys are grown men now, but way back I had this idea when they were babies. When they were babies,
so different.
It is so different. You have no idea. It's literally if I combine your idea with what the actual idea is, you're a cannibal. Is really what it comes down to. You're eating children. You're eating children.
It only took a couple episodes to get into cannibalism here.
Right. On a long enough timeline, it always goes there.
That's true. I need to ask before we're done, just if you would come back at some point, because you're just, dude, you're a wealth of knowledge, and you're not. Thanks, man. You don't have a fucking ego. You're so approachable and so knowledgeable, and I just love it.
Facu killed it.
I know. What did you just say? What did you just call me? He just called me something. What did he just call me? Fuck you.
It is funny because the company that bought us is British, and so when they say Facu, it sounds like fuck you. That's the best.
And an arrogant fuck you too. Fuck you. Fuck who?
Yeah.
Fuck who?
Pretentious.
Yeah, very pretentious. Yeah. Ben, you were going to ask the question. What do you got?
I before you go, I do want to ask, because I think the audience is like, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening here being like, how do I go from $10,000 to $200 million? And we've talked a little bit about like that way in that journey, but how, like, you have something, maybe you found a little bit of product market fit. How do you scale to that level where you can have an exit like that? You can build a business sustainable like that.
Yeah. I think it's...
I ask easy questions.
Yeah, how do you answer that
It's
question?
we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up. Here's an existential question.
Exactly.
We were talking
think
about
it's-
atoms, you know.
Or maybe
how
to
do you
make-
how do you arrange the
yeah.
atoms into $200 billion stacks?
Or maybe an
yeah.
easier version of
Please.
that question would just be like, were there decisions that you remember that were kind of, the touchstone decisions or successes that kind of started launching that into scale?
Yeah, I think there's. Let me give an answer, and you guys can choose the question in post. How about that?
Perfect.
So,
we will anyway.
Yeah,
You're not our real guest, okay? Just so you know.
That guy was super mega. What was that about? Anyways,
That's right.
what did you guys edit me into? What is AI doing? I think so. The phrase that comes to mind is something you have said a lot. Is like success is a byproduct of excellence, and it's just like what the reason I say that is because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and this is what I did in the beginning. It was about money. I was like, I'm busting my butt over here. I always thought I cared more than my boss. In hindsight, I was just an ambitious punk kid, just thinking I knew better kind of a thing. But it was like, okay, if I focus on money, I'm making a lot of short-term decisions, and building a business is probably one of the worst ways to make money, ironically, because you can go be a finance person, a salesperson, something to go chase cash, right? But instead it was, how do I focus on the problem in front of me and being excellent at it, or finding someone who is excellent at it? So it was like, all right, we're blogging. Oh, I have this thing. We've figured out what this product is. Because it was just me in the beginning. And then it was like, okay, I'm not as good at the sales stuff. Let me find someone who's good at the sales stuff, but also wants an adventure because they're going to be basically a founder, right? And then all of a sudden, we don't have any product expertise. We kind of understand where the product's going to go, or at least a little bit of it. Let's go find Faku, right? That type of a thing. And so I think it's if you focus on excellence, it helps a lot. And I know that's really fluffy, but it's constantly thinking about, what do I want, aligned to what we talked about before, and then go figure out excellence. And you're rarely going to actually be excellent. It's actually rarely going to happen. But over a long enough timeline, all those ups and downs equal a lot of ups. And then I think the second thing, and I'm glad you said that, Greg, and I appreciate the compliment, because I think you have to embrace getting kicked in the face every day. Because something's going to kick you in the face. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a customer that you had is going to cancel. It's going to be the sales pitch that you thought went really well. Turned out it didn't go well. It's going to be the person you thought was going to be with you for the next 5 years is going to quit, and you're not going to know why. It's going to be someone says they don't like working with you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought we worked well together. It's just going to be all these things. And I think that the worst entrepreneurs are the entrepreneurs I see that aren't successful, because not only are they not successful from a monetary perspective, but they're unhappy, are the ones who are kind of like dictators, and even dictators of their emotions in their mind. And it's every time the suck comes in and every time the kick in the face comes in, it's not them, it's everyone else.
Yeah.
It's not them. And then struggling with, is it me? Is it them? Because sometimes it is not you, and that's fine. And then I think the last one, I'm kind of already alluding to it, is you're not going to be everything to everyone. That's fine. Mm-hmm. You guys are going to hire people. There's a certain type of person you should hire. There's going to be people who don't jive with that. It's okay. Doesn't mean you're better than them or not. It's they belong at a different type of company, right? And it took us a long time to internalize that. And as soon as we did, that's when a lot of the growth came, because we stopped wasting our time with trying to accommodate a certain type of hire, which wasn't good or bad, just didn't fit with our values and how we thought about the business. So
right.
Yeah, I think those are a couple of principles. And then just stay at it. I think that's the biggest thing. You're going to want to quit a lot. Just stay at it. And,
dude,
it's amazing what resilience does.
I'm listening to you. This is I get asked to speak in front of big groups of actors, young actors that are trying to come up. And I say exactly what you are saying. Exactly.
Yeah.
First, I look at them and I say,
but that's what it is.
Yeah, but I say, you're never going to make money. Never are going to make money. That's not why you're in this. And if you're in this to make money, get out of it.
Yeah.
And if
There's
you get past
to do it.
But if they get past me saying you're going to get kicked in the face, you're going to be told you're too big, you're too small, you're too funny, you're too serious, whatever the hell it is. It's exactly like acting. I mean, every part of what how you just answered, I wanted to jump in and say,
but it's
my God.
It's just it's like trying to do something great. That's what's happening.
Yes.
Acting, from my understanding, it's a craft, right? And business is a craft. You're trying to get better every day. Like, yes, I am, I think I have a good humble like aura, and I am a humble person now. It wasn't like that in the beginning. It wasn't like I was like arrogant, but I was definitely insecure, and that was like how it's showing, right? But I worked on my craft, right? I worked on how I responded to reactions. And there's so much of this advice, and I'm sure it happens in acting and entertainment as well, where it's like, don't take it personally. It's like, no, that's terrible advice. Of course you're going to take it personally.
Exactly.
It's how you handle taking it personally that matters, right?
Yeah.
Use it as fuel. Use it as, I don't think that feedback's important not because it's right or wrong, but it's not where I'm taking my career. Like all that stuff I think is so important.
Yeah, and I also tell people, I say, don't get out of line. And they always look at it like, oh, don't talk back. And I said, no, you're standing in a long line. The door to where you want to get is up there. The longer you stay in line, the more educated, more excellent you're going to get. So when that door opens, you're going to be prepared. So don't worry about how long it's going to take, because you're going to get better and better at it. I mean, Nick is an incredible.
I'm going to the gym after this. The gym after this. That was a good pep talk. I like that.
Dude, my gym sells tacos, so I don't know where you're working out.
And baby burritos.
I went to the gym and then I went to get tacos yesterday, literally.
Perfect.
Best of both worlds.
That's great.
Dude, PC, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you jumping on.
Absolutely.
And I've learned.
Good hanging, gents.
Yeah, I've learned so much.
I mean, as Greg said, we're going to bring you back when we've like launched, I think at the very minimum, when we've like launched or starting to launch one of our new companies, because you are the expert at subscription and pricing, and we're going to need your advice and humbly request it.
Yes, and we will.
When you want the episode where like I go, this is why you'll fail in every single way. Like that's the episode, and I'll do it in a nice way, because I think red teaming your idea is really important. Of like, all right, guys, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Just so that you guys don't feed your euphoria too much and all that kind of fun stuff. So,
we're gonna change. It's gonna go from PC to DA, Devil's Advocate. That's
there you go. I like it.
Love it. Thanks, man.
Business Envy, hosted and produced by Ben Parr and Greg Grunberg. Music and production by me, Nick Marzak, a Motel Podcast production.